Okay, awesome. Can you start letting people in then?
Yep, that should be it.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. Good to see you again. Sorry for a little bit of a late start, but we're getting warmed up here. Should be good. Got a very fun guest today. I will I'll spotlight him and myself so we kind of know who to keep an eye on here. So it's me and Robert are the guests for today.
Hello,
Um,
everyone.
yeah, hey, I don't know, they may not be able to say hi, but they can see you there, Robert. All right, let me get started by just saying thank you for being here. Thanks for rolling in here today. We're going to be streaming out here on Facebook and YouTube as is typical. So you might see us out there. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, or actually we go out on Instagram and Twitter as well these days, you should be able to find a link to join us in the Zoom call. So if you find that, then click on that and jump on into the Zoom call with us so you can be part of the more direct conversation. Um, and then I just want to start introing to where we're at today. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Piano Tech Radio Hour. And what we do here each week is we gather on Saturdays to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This includes manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And you can subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour for just $16 a month. You can get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as the archival recordings over 200 episodes in our member area. You can join Piano Tech Radio Hour at bit.ly/join PTRH. And just a couple of updates here, just to make sure you guys are aware. Make sure you go to check out the podcast, pianotechradio.com. We're releasing new episodes now. We'll actually be releasing quite a few in the coming weeks. And then also check out our Substack, which contains our Masterclasses blog, where you can capture some of our content, our educational content, get a little peek into it and see if you want to subscribe. You can also go on social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and find at Piano Tech Masterclasses and join us there. And then we do have a convention online coming up on June the 20th. That's a Thursday. It's going to be an all-day event with multiple instructors. We're going to bring back Jim Wilson. We're going to talk to Mark Sarazano. We're going to talk to Glenn Bingham, who spent many years at Steinway. And there's also going to be a special treat that's yet to be announced, which I think you're going to really enjoy. So make sure you check out the convention, and we'll put a link in the chat so that you can sign up for that now. And now I'd love to officially intro our guest for the day. But before I do so, I just want to check in with Emrys there on the setup here. Emrys, are you seeing me as spotlighted and Robert as spotlighted?
Yes, you guys look good.
Okay, excellent. For some reason, my computer's not showing that, but just want to make sure we're all set up like that. Great. I want to do a little intro of Robert before we get started so you get some background. Some of you may be well aware of him, but let's get some background. He is a champion of music. His name is Robert Estrin. Music technology, historical instruments. He has a YouTube channel meant to enrich pianists and music lovers worldwide. He studied piano and French horn at the Manhattan School of Music in New York City, as well as the Mozarteum in Salzburg, Austria. He also has a degree in piano performance from Indiana University. He has owned several recording studios. He has composed and produced numerous albums, as well as music for film and television. He currently teaches through and owns Living Pianos. This is the world's first online piano store, which started in Orange County, California in 2006. And they sell pianos all around the world. And you can also find really wonderful educational content from Robert on YouTube about pianos and everything related. So Robert, officially welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here today and welcome everyone.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to I've been looking forward to this. I'm glad you were able to jump on. I've been seeing your content for years, as I'm sure many people have, and you just clearly have a lot of passion, a lot of enthusiasm for pianos and everything you do. And we talked about this previously, but one of the things I really love about you and what you're doing is you really carved out a niche. Like this is something what you're doing, no one else could do besides Robert Estrin. And I love when people can do that in the world, just really bring their personality and their uniqueness into everything that they do. So one of the things I'd like to do up front is maybe just get a little bit more background from you so we can set the stage. How did it end up that you became such a musical person? Did you have a musical family? Did you study early on? Did you foresee that your whole life, would surround around pianos and music? Tell us about a little bit about the background here.
Well, it is kind of natural that I ended up in piano because my father, Morton Estrin, was a concert pianist and a teacher. He taught many, many people, famous conductors, composers. Billy Joel was one of his students, Debbie Gibson, a lot of people in the industry. My sister's also a pianist. In fact, my entire extended family are professional musicians of one sort or another. So, I mean, I literally grew up with it. So it was a natural for me to go into it. But I've also always had a real interest in recording technology. My father had professional recording equipment in his studio, and although he was professor of music at Hofstra University in New York, he did most of his teaching right in a big addition in the back of our house where he'd have recitals and classes. And so I was closely associated with his students, and I would get his hand-me-down recording equipment. So from the youngest age, I would play with tape recorders and do crazy things with them. I also always had an interest in photography. I had a dark room. So, doing videos is kind of a natural extension of that, and music technology and all of that. Living Pianos started in 2006, as you mentioned, in Orange County, California, as the world's first online piano store. And the whole reason for it, if you go back 100 plus years ago, the piano industry was huge. There were hundreds of thousands of pianos sold, which today only a fraction of those, that number of pianos are bought and sold in the United States, even though we have, triple at least the population. And there were hundreds of American piano companies, boutique operations in every major city in the country had these amazing craftspeople making extraordinary instruments. And Living Piano's mission is to bring new life to these pianos, many of which sadly end up in the landfill. Now, while there are a number of companies around the country that restore Steinways, as we do, most of the other piano brands go by the wayside, even though there are some that are absolutely stupendous instruments. Of course, Mason and Hamlin and Baldwin, we always seek out pianos worthy of restoration. But there's Chickering and Knabe and many others that are really, really extraordinary instruments. And today there are Asian powerhouses, and these are mechanized operations. And while the quality is very good on Asian production pianos, it's a very different beast, And for people who appreciate the range of tonal expression you get on a Steinway or a Baldwin or a Bechstein, and the price gap between the Asian production pianos and the hand-built pianos has just gotten so out of hand. A piano like this, which is the smallest Steinway Grand made, the Model S, is over $80,000 for a baby grand. So our mission is to make it possible for people to own a piano like this. This, by the way, was my father's piano that his father, my grandfather, got for him in the 1930s. And it was a struggle, and they made payments, and there were times that he almost lost it. It was to get this piano was hard back then, even though it was less than $1,000 back then.
Wow.
So we restored this piano, and it plays like a dream. And it takes so much to do this, but the bottom line is we try to spread the joy of piano to people, both with our instruments. I teach students all over the world with Zoom, with Google Meet and other platforms, and of course make videos. And I, believe it or not, I'll leave you with this, and then we can go on to other things, because I know there's a lot of interesting things we're going to cover today about piano
Yeah.
technology, because I have a deep background in that. I actually had my start making piano videos. I was asked to be on the team for a company called Digivent in Irvine, California. This was back, believe it or not, in the late 90s. It was a cutting edge company, kind of ahead of its time. And they had live video chat with associated chat and slides. It was an amazing platform. And in order to showcase their technology, what they did was to have 3 shows. There was a keyboard show, a drum show, and a guitar show. These were weekly, live, 1-hour internet shows. And I did, 50 of these shows. Every week, it was an hour, boom, without a break, with the cameras on me. And that's why making YouTube videos is like easy, because most of my YouTube videos are, way shorter than that. And, I can do them right here. I've got all the technology. What you're seeing here is basically, I've got cameras all over the room that I can make anything I want. I've got good audio. And so that was a natural fit for me. And here's the real challenge, and this is a challenge for musicians, pianists, and other instrumentalists, composers, even other people in the arts, whether they're painters or writers, is that to be able to be noticed in this world is really, really difficult, because so many people are so highly skilled. How do you set yourself apart? And I originally, years ago, before Living Pianos came about, I came up with a show that I did all over California in dozens of universities, art centers, even a Living Piano, that's right, Living Piano singular, cruise out of Newport Beach, where I dressed up in period costumes and showed the whole history of the piano, from the harpsichord to a replica of Mozart's piano, with a whole collection of instruments. And it was called Living Piano, Journey Through Time, Historic Concert Experience. And the reason why I did that is, once again, to have something memorable that you can talk about and get excited about, not just the nuance of quality in a musical performance, but the whole entire experience. And that's what I try to do with my videos, to provide something that isn't available elsewhere, because there's so much content. You can see literally 3-year-olds playing the heck out of Mozart concertos on YouTube. So what can you possibly do as a pianist in this world? Well, I try to share in a personal way everything I have, and bring the joy of piano, and bring piano alive for people, in terms of playing and studying, as well as the instruments.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think the wonderful thing about you too is, if we don't cover all of your story, which is like a ton to share, they can capture stuff on YouTube. There's all kinds of different things. One of the things that you said that I wanted to make sure we mentioned, and we may not go deep into it, but I want to highlight it because I don't want to gloss over it. I really love that idea of the Living Piano show that you put together. And I can't help but just kind of like reminisce with you about those times. Like, it sounds so kind of fun and fresh and kind of like risky, like, hey, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to wear some costumes. And you said you were carrying around, like, basically in like a van or a truck, all these different instruments to show to people. I mean, that's so creative. And I'm just so glad that grew into something, as big and powerful as it is today. Was it kind of like, what did that feel like doing that? Was it kind of risky, kind of nervous? Did you have people?
Oh my gosh, you have no idea.
Did people say that it was like a silly idea? Like, what was that like?
People, here's the thing that was so surprising about it. When I first started, the very first one was for the Music Teachers Association, and they just loved it. They burst up in standing ovation at the end, and I knew I was onto something. But what was really surprising was I did it from everything from kindergartners to senior citizens and everything in between, and everybody was captivated, because the piano is so ubiquitous. But to actually have the story of how it came to be, not just verbally, but to hear the instruments. And at the end of the performances, I'd always invite the audience up to physically try the instruments. And most people, maybe they've ever played a harpsichord. Have they ever played a forte piano? I had never played a forte piano before I envisioned this. I never studied these instruments in conservatory. Once I got this brainchild, I was obsessed with finding these instruments, learning how to not just play them, but to service them. To give you an idea of the challenges, I outfitted my van so I could put them in, up on end in 2 slots.
Several
I
instruments.
get there.
That's crazy.
And, I would painstakingly before I left, get everything tuned and regulated and, little tiny adjustments, get into the place, tune everything up. Then if the stage lights came on, this was, early on, this was before, LED lights were so common. Just the heat of the stage lights would just knock everything out. I'll never forget my last performance I did of this was the annual convention. I did 2 annual conventions of the Music Teachers Association up in Los Angeles. And I get there, first of all, I expanded the show because I'm also into technology. I have 2 prototypes that some of you may have seen in some of my videos, which is a modular piano system that provides a virtual concert grand playing experience. And so I had all this technology on stage in addition to the historical instruments. So it kind of starts before the piano, the harpsichord, through past the piano to cutting edge technologies. And little did I know, I get in there and one of the custodians had knocked over a cable. It was a MIDI cable and it pulled it out. It was a molded cable and it was pulled out. And it's like, oh my God. And it was a long cable because it had to attach a piano. It was actually a piano disc that was playing from another keyboard. And it was like, what? And I had the sense to have brought a second MIDI cable, but it was shorter. So I had to change things. But the night before was the nightmare. Harpsichords are so temperamental. And the night before I was up till past, I was about 1:30 in the morning. I was still in there adjusting. I could never get one of the ranks to work on the harpsichord. I had to reorchestrate my whole performance. Whoa. And the performance was an 8 a.m. performance and I wasn't done. It's just a coincidence that was my last performance, but that alone could have been a good reason to abandon it. But I enjoyed doing it. In fact, what I did towards the end, the last year or 2, was I had some prodigy students at the time, and I involved them. So young Mozart, I had 1 student, then I had another student who became Liszt, and I still performed in there, but I featured my students, gave them performance opportunities because it's so incredibly valuable. And at least one of them has gone on to a professional career in piano. So I'm sure that didn't hurt having these playing opportunities.
That's amazing. Yeah, and forgive me, I'm gonna be, as we move forward, I'll be interjecting more because I want to make sure I cover some of the
Absolutely.
stuff. We got
It's
a lot of
all
stuff
yours.
on the list. I don't know. We won't cover everything, but one of the things I want to, well, actually, as you were talking through it, it made me think. You were talking about the MIDI technology and everything, and I know that you were quite active in the California and probably Los Angeles as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that close?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Jim Wilson? Is he a connection of yours?
I don't think
Okay,
so. I could
so
look at my database.
we won't go too deep into it because we want to
Yeah.
talk about you today, but definitely look him up. He's just released an autobiography called In Tune and Memoirs of a Piano Man, and or Tuned In, sorry. And he was the guy for a while, the only guy that could put a MIDI mod on your acoustic piano to make it so that you could control a MIDI controller. But he has a very interesting life story and career and all this good
I
stuff.
should mention, just because it was in the late 80s that I had a Kurzweil K250, which was a state-of-the-art digital workstation, 88 wooden keys, and I MIDI'd my Steinway to my Kurzweil. This is in the late 80s, Crystal Gulbranson, which is the system that became QRS later on. And I became a dealer of MIDI retrofits way back then. So I'm no stranger to this. I kind of caught the MIDI bug when it first came out and got my Commodore 64 computer, and I've been kind of hooked ever since.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm like that too. I'm sort of a tech guy as well. So speaking of tech, let's talk about piano tech, because I know that there's a lot that we can talk about. And very specifically, we should let people know that you need piano technicians out there in Cleveland. I don't know if you need people in Santa Ana as well, but I know that that's a big deal for you, and you know, you've got our ear. So I guess start by telling us, you know, it's a very interesting moment for the field of piano technology for us, like piano technicians. You know, some of us are looking at the state of the industry and being like, is this a gig that's gonna last for a while or not? Or, but at the same time, I don't know if you saw, there was some article that came out a few months ago in it was literally, they thought it was worth writing about in a publication in Australia. Australia doesn't have enough piano technicians. It's an issue, you know? So tell us, yeah, you know, about your experience here, why you need someone, what kind of thing you're looking
Sure.
for. Yeah.
Well, in California, I mean, just because there's so many millions of people, we every single piano in our showroom was prepped to a concert level, and whether it was a Steinway concert grand or a Young Chang, it didn't matter. And every single piano was in tune. Which, by the way, when you have 60 plus pianos, it's pretty rare to find that. In here in Cleveland, all the pianos that we have videos of are prepped like that. But we have probably 3 times as many pianos, some of them that just need that final prep. And we have 2 phenomenal technicians, and they're very unusual in that they do everything from concert level voicing to restringing to cabinet work. I mean, they do everything. But we have some interns also, and some people come from time to time. But if we had more piano technicians here, we could have, triple the number of pianos for sale on our website. And we have searched near and far. I mean, piano schools and, the PTG advertising, a national search, a local search, asking every piano technician in the area. And there's just a shortage of piano technicians, not just Australia. And I could tell you because, we sell pianos all over the country, and we include delivery and tuning in all the pianos we sell. And finding piano technicians all around the country, there's just a robust market for piano technicians. There really, really is, especially anybody who is good. So, here in Cleveland, what's really great about Cleveland is that it has a legacy of the arts that is unbelievable. A city of its size, 10 minutes away, we've got the Cleveland Orchestra, the second largest playhouse district in the country, the Cleveland Art Museum. It goes on and on and on. Right on our street here in the Waterloo Arts District, Fred Hirsch is coming in June.
Wow.
We have like amazing arts and culture, yet the cost of living is a tiny fraction. And people ask me, especially people in Cleveland, it's funny, why did you move to Cleveland? Well, first, my sister lives here, so I'm no stranger to Cleveland. She's also a pianist and a teacher on the west side. And also for years, we were, operating in Orange County, California, with some of the most expensive places to operate a business that you could possibly be. Yet we're selling about 84% of our pianos out of area. There was nothing tying us to that area. So we kind of had our eyes on moving for a long time, and things came together through a series of events that were a little bit more complicated than I would have liked. But we ended up here. We own this beautiful historical building from the 1860s, and we've got showrooms here. And up the street, we sold a concert grand to this jazz club I just made reference to that's going to have Fred Hirsch and have other people. Tree Lawn, it's called. And Tree Lawn has 2 venues, and we sold them a concert grand Steinway, and we became very good friends. And they have this huge room now where we have most of our pianos over there. We have 2 showrooms here. So we're stock full of pianos. People love working here because it's a team and everybody learns from everyone. So we need like everything. So, if somebody just does, restringing or action rebuilding or fine work, I mean, somebody doesn't have to do everything to be valuable here. We don't really need more interns of people on that basic level. Somebody who just has any background we would consider. And I can tell you that my piano technicians here, as well as in California, have always said that they always learn from me. Why? And it's because I grew up playing pianos that were prepped on the most extremely high level. I would get to try my father's pianos, in Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall before his concerts, at recording sessions whenever you take a break. These instruments that were impeccably voice tuned. And so this is what I have in my
You
head
have a
when I play a
standard,
piano.
your standards are very high, yeah.
Well, and sometimes it takes a village, and in California, sometimes one technician will come, another, and there's one little issue, maybe it's a top octave, it's strike point issues, or a buzz somewhere, or an unevenness, or dampers, or una corda voicing, you got to have, and that's the kind of work that we do here. So, to be able to get pianos at that level is so satisfying because the sound you get and the expression that's possible is like, it's just such an incredible playing experience.
Right. Yeah, and we don't have to go too deep into this because I think it's obvious. It will be obvious once I say it. And that is that you're one of these dealers that might be kind of rare, where you want all the pianos on your showroom to be prepped, and you're willing, to have piano technicians work on that process to make them at a high level. It's not about being on a budget or like saving a buck or making it good enough. So I just want to point that out because I know you know this, and we all know this as piano technicians. Sometimes you hear dealer and you're like, nah, I'm just gonna work independently. They're gonna ask a lot for a little bit, and they're not gonna care about the quality, whatever. Make just a couple comments on, you've already said you have a high standard, and so we can see that's kind of the reason. It's almost like an obsession for yourself to have them in that condition. But I guess talk more about kind of, I guess, respecting that process and being that kind of dealer as opposed to a different kind.
Sure. Well, most piano dealers are business people and they don't necessarily play on a high level. Some do, most don't, because I can tell you, running a piano business is extremely time consuming and it's a tremendous challenge to juggle all the things I do, from the teaching, the guiding the work on the pianos, dealing with the barrage of emails. I do have help. My son in California is an integral part of the business because he goes through all my emails and makes the contacts in my customer relationship management software and gives me the appointments and sets up my teaching schedule, helps with the pre-writing of articles, and you're running the business and still having the time to practice. It's a funny thing because all my students, they all say, oh, it's so hard to find time to practice. I say, join the club, and when I interviewed one of my former teachers, Ruth Slenchinska. Ruth Slenchinska was an incredible child prodigy and has the distinction of being the last living student of Sergei Rachmaninoff. She studied with Schnabel, Hoffman, Levine, everyone, and she came up with she did another recording just 2 years ago. She's 98 years old now, and she's a remarkable woman. And in interviewing her, and I've got that on YouTube, and Last Living Student of Rachmaninoff is the title, any of you want to search that out. And I asked her, how did you find time to practice? Because she also had a busy teaching schedule. And of course, when you're traveling, how do you have, and she said, and I'll never forget this, and I've always taken it to heart, stealing moments. And like dinner's almost ready, you think, maybe I'll just see what's on here, and it's so easy to suck time, and then you don't realize that you thought it was going to take 10 minutes, but take 20 minutes for dinner. You could actually memorize another few measures of music in that time if you're focused in. Yep. And it's this way for everyone, and it's not just in piano, it's whatever it is, what your avocation is. If you're a piano technician, there's always more to learn. And there's the different software to explore. Take advantage of those moments, that between moments, and don't just suck it away with social media. Not that there isn't an important place for that, but taking advantage of time so that you can be productive. What I do, and we'll get back to all this stuff we want to get to, but I just want to mention this because it's so important for everyone, including piano technicians, who I imagine are most of the audience here, is organization. I was amazing in one regard. In 2003, I started every single person who contacted me, I made a contact in a program called Time and Chaos. And
Okay,
I
that
put
sounds
their
fun.
phone number, email address, name, and it had notes. And every single time they'd contact me, I would put notes and what transpired, whether it was email. And I have now, believe it or not, and none of these are from a database. This is all, every single contact entered now. In our stores, when we had employees, they also put people in there. So these aren't just people I put in there,
Yeah.
but there are 45,000 contacts in there.
Wow. Wow.
And the cool thing is when the phone rings, the contact pops up before you answer the phone. You've got the contact with all their notes.
Wow.
And people think I've got the most amazing memory, but the reality is everything I need to remember either goes there or it goes into a document for ideas for videos, or it goes in somewhere else because I spend all my time memorizing music. It's the only thing I actively memorize. Everything else I offload to the cloud, and
Yeah.
I can get to everything. If I lost all my devices tomorrow, doesn't matter. I don't have anything saved locally except this show.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And that's something that I've also spent some time doing. I did some teaching, also at the university level. And, I remember there's a time where at the beginning of the session, I would get every student's picture and their name and try to do a little quiz. And now I know everybody's names in the first couple of weeks. People really, they don't really necessarily even care how you remember their name. The thing about it is the fact that you cared to remember their name is just as important as how you remember it. You
Sure.
know, the fact that you might have a great memory for names is, it's due to a lot of factors, environmental, genetic, like your background, education study, like whatever. But if you want to remember somebody's name, you can do it. You can write it down.
Sure.
You meet somebody,
Hmm.
write down their name, and then the next time you go meet them, you look it up and you say, okay, that's, Joseph, whatever. And you say,
Hmm.
hey, Joe, how's it going? And they're going to, oh, I'm sorry, tell me I forgot your name, right? But they're going to love it. It's just going to feel so good that somebody took the time, however they did it, to remember your name,
Yeah.
to
Well,
remember something about you.
I do this with everything. Anytime there's anything, oh, I should really do whatever it is, calendar event. So every single day when I get up, the first thing I do is we have this couch. You push a button and you put your legs up. I put a pillow, the laptop. I go through my emails first, which takes a long time. Then I have all these they look like all day events. It's all the things that I thought to put for that day, and I get
Mm,
them all done and put in
mm,
notes what transpired. And then if there's a follow up, another calendar event. If it's something that isn't a timely, like, oh, if I have a Mason and Hamlin CC, it goes into tasks. And then once a week, we check the tasks. And my wife, Florence, is unbelievably helpful for the back end also. And we also have Chris in California, who used to work full time for us. And now he does everything remotely. He does all my video editing. And he's an incredible resource for the back end of the website and all of that. So it's not like I do everything myself, but
yeah.
we have systems in place to keep things straight. And I recommend for anybody out there, you could double or triple your business if you're just organized. And with the technologies today, it's not that hard.
Yeah. And as you said, it's okay to have it be a team effort. Again, like people have these artificial constraints they put around, like it's all got to be in my head, and I gotta remember it sort of biologically and not on a piece of paper.
Right.
So important. Well, we could go on and on about that kind of stuff, but we'll get back into a little bit pianos.
Let's
Actually,
do it.
I'm remembering, you're a wonderful piano player. You do practice. You do have some things under your fingers. I wanted the audience to hear a little bit, and I think you might have something that you're willing to share with us.
Sure.
Would you mind playing just a little bit for us?
Sure. I'd love to. I'll play something short that has a lot of different colors. Debussy, of course, an impressionist composer. This is a piece I originally studied when I was 13 years old. I played the complete Children's Corner Suite, or reminiscences of Debussy's childhood. And the first movement is called Doctor Gratis ad Parnassum. Now, what is Gratis ad Parnassum? Gratis ad Parnassum were exercises of Clementi for the piano. And so it was kind of poking fun, like this is medicine for his piano playing. And this is the first movement from the suite, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Awesome.
A little bit of
Bravo.
Debussy.
Thank you. Wonderful. Incredible. Yeah. I mean, it's great to follow that right after talking about how busy you are and all this stuff, right? And everything's so, yeah, you got time to pull that together.
That's what my motivation is for everything. Everything I do with the business is just an extension of my passion for the piano, and this is how I pay my dues in order to be able to have a life as a classical pianist in the 21st century in the United States.
Yeah.
Because you know what? There aren't jobs for that. There's like just a handful of people in the entire world who are touring concert pianists. So you have to carve out something unique for yourself and try to use your unique skill sets, whatever your field is, and follow your passion. And it's taken me literally a lifetime to be able to kind of bring things together to the extent that I have.
Yeah, wonderful. And by the way, we do have some comments. We've had a couple comments. One up at the front, Mary Brocious said hello from Pennsylvania. And
All right.
then just again, Mary Brocious said, excellent, thank you for playing for us. And also, before you were playing, Celia said, I love your enthusiasm and your expertise, Robert. So wonderful
Thank you.
comments from the audience here. Um, Wonderful playing. I think that maybe moving on, let me see what might be the next thing. Let's talk a little bit about, gosh, there's so many things. Let's talk about the state of the piano industry. I mean, you are in a unique position. I'm kind of there too, where I get to see a lot of different people and meet different people in different roles in the industry. What's your opinion on, where we're going here? Where do you see things in 5 or 10 years? You're uniquely positioned because you do have like the technology side of things to kind of sell pianos in different locations but what's going on here? Where are we going to be? What do you think?
Well, in the big picture, the piano has been in decline in the United States, since the early part of the 20th century. The last little gasp was in the late 70s, mostly uprights and families, piano lessons and all that. But on a much more basic level, it's interesting the development of hybrid pianos. Now, interesting fact is, back in the late 80s, when I MIDI'd my Steinway to the Kurzweil K250, instantly I thought somebody should come out with a piano that has the real piano action and the sounds created digitally. And every NAMM show, I would talk to everybody in the industry and saying, you should do this, and nobody ever did it. Until finally Yamaha with the Almond Grand and others are doing it. But this is technology that will obviously grow, the hybrid type of model, and where it's so important. Of course, a lot of people will scoff at it. I mean, particularly piano technicians don't want to see that, but there are certain instances where really it makes sense. People, for example, in China and the rest of the world, where homes are not as large as they are here, people really don't have the choice of having even a baby grand. And upright actions are sluggish compared to grand actions because you don't have the gravity helping. And of course, there are newer technologies with magnets and things that these are areas of potential growth. But hybrid pianos offer a solution to get the feel and the sound of a concert grand, the way the tone develops, in the tenor register and of course the bass. So I think that's going to be an obvious area of growth. But the piano itself is never going away. People love the organic experience of playing a real piano. And right now the epicenter in the world is China, where there's something like 50, some estimates 50 million piano students, which is 10 times more than we have here or something like that. So it's not like the piano is dead. It's just that even guitar is not as popular in the United States as it used to be. Things have moved on with technology, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that develops in the coming years with music, not just pianos, because AI is pretty amazing at writing and art. And in music, it's at its infancy and it's kind of laughable still. But when you think about what video with AI was just a year ago, and now it's like, whoa. It's just a matter of time before that develops. So I think people have to figure out how people figure into this new world we're living in. And it's always been that way. When recording first came about in the 1930s and 40s, and people thought, oh my gosh, it's going to put people out of work. Then, of course, synthesizers in the 80s, and they tried to stop that. And sampling, oh, we got to stop that. You can't stop these things.
Right.
We have to figure out how to adjust and how can we become part of the equation. So people who embrace these technologies, which brings us seamlessly into another topic that I'm sure we want to cover, which is technologies for tuning pianos. And that is another area where piano technicians on both sides of the issue have very, very strong feelings. The ear tuners really feel that they want to have their input and their experience. And people who embrace the technology, some absolutely stupendous tuners who can tune by ear great, but appreciate the precision that goes beyond human hearing that the technology can offer, and this experience, the aggregate experience of thousands of piano tuners that goes into software like TuneLab and CyberTuner, not to mention the Piano Scope.
Yeah,
So that's something, and I wonder, you're a piano technician? Is that true?
I do, yeah. I tune pianos and do like regulation and things like that. Not so much actively. I'm managing a business, but I do
Right.
know how to do those things, and yeah.
So do you use technology in your tuning generally or sometimes?
Yeah, I remember when I decided, I learned about ear tuning early on, but I also got to use I used one of those blue boxes for a while. And I lost that blue box, by the way, a couple times, or it like needed some software update or something. And I always took advantage of that problem, oh, the thing's not working. You know what? Try to tune by ear for a little while. And then I'd get to this point where I'd be like, okay, listen, like let's make this more efficient, right? Because it can take a long time to tune by ear, or the pitch raises are really annoying. So then I'd implement it again. So I vacillated, and then at a certain point, I wanted to pass the PTG exams with ear tuning, so I definitely studied down and made sure I fit all the protocols for that, and I had a good enough ear for that, and did passed really well. And so these days, I like to have a device, but I always like my ear to be the final judge. And I'll often either change the tuning slightly from what the device says, usually with some type of systematic way. So I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm wanting a little bit flatter than the device says as I'm moving into the bass. So it looks like I'm doing that about 1 cent or something, so then I'll continue with a pattern that works. And then also one thing that I've noticed at least tends to work better for me is when I'm tuning the intervals, checking the intervals like in a temperament or something. I
Right.
want to get the unison on the previous note that I'm comparing with. I want all three strings. I want to tune all those by ear. I want to compare them with the device, but I want my ear to be the final judge. And then the next note that I tune, I really want to be more comparing to the previous note than the device. And that reason, I have a logic behind that, which is that in a piano, you'd rather have the strings tuned to each other than some abstract concept, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I do it. I use a device. I like to have it as a guide. It can make things quicker, but my ear is always the ultimate judge. Unless I'm doing something with my ear and then I see I'm going off the rails, and then I'll say, okay, let's use the device. So
It's interesting. Recently, there was a piano convention in Las Vegas called PIPA, PIPPA,
Yeah,
which
I
I
heard about it.
recommend, by the way. Fantastic event. There were many piano technicians and piano companies, and I met a lot of interesting people. And one of the people I met there talked about a tuning method that I thought I'd share with everybody here and see how many people are hip to this. His idea is that the typical thing, tune the temperament in the middle octave, and then, tune all the octaves, then tune the unit, the single strings, and tune the unisons. The problem, of course, we all know when doing pitch raises is that the pressure exerted on the bridge changes the tuning of the part you just tuned. So that's why you have to do several passes and all of that. And of course, that's where the software is so incredibly valuable because it can compensate for that scientifically, unless somebody has vast experience. It's hard to do that by ear. But what he does to mitigate the problem of the piano going out of tune is starts from the very bottom, just uses a wedge and just tunes each unison going all the way up the piano. And he does it, with the technology, and finds that it's much more, it gets a lot more done in the first pass on a piano using that. And I wonder how common a practice that is.
And so you're saying use the device maybe in some sort of pitch raise mode to do that, to kind of stabilize?
Well, even if it's not a pitch raise, that's just his standard method of tuning every unison from the bottom of the piano up. And I don't remember which software
I
he
would
used.
I would only bother to do that if the piano was close enough to being in tune. If it needed to pitch raise and it was that far out, I generally am not bothering too much about the unisons until I get to the final pass, because the problem can be I'm tuning a unison and then that's off, or that string then gets off as the
Right,
unison. It's all getting off. Why did I spend so much time trying to get the unison if it was all going to be off anyways? So if the piano were close, and the device is a good device, and I know that it's going to get close, sure, then I might do that as a first pass and then go back with my ear. But if it did
right.
need some sort of adjustment, I wouldn't bother with those. That's
Mhm.
me. That would be my style.
I had somebody recently show me a technique, a device. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I think I send you in
The
the notes. And
piano scope, is that what you're talking
yeah,
about?
pianoscope.
I
Thank
haven't
you.
checked it out, yeah.
Oh, it looks really interesting. It's this little tiny device that it's got a magnet, so you put it on the strings and
Oh,
it
I think
stays
maybe
there.
was that piano scope or was that something different? Maybe it had a different name. Anyways,
Yeah,
you
pianoscope. And
okay.
then it has it like it overhangs over a set of three strings, and then you mute, what so you have one string playing. And instead of recording the audio of the string, it does it optically. So it's
Mm,
absolutely dead accurate, much more accurate than because it doesn't not affected by duplex or any of the
right.
enharmonicies that you might have. And he swears by it, and there are many tuners, high-end tuners, who are
Mm,
swearing by this device. You plug it in, and it converts it to like audio information for
right.
the software. And
Wow.
apparently, this is supposed to be a game changer for people who use the software because you get, and I think of it as what a godsend. You could be in a room and tune pianos right next to each other and have no problem because it doesn't matter what the sound is. It's just
Right.
literally looking at the string, and you can set how long, whether you're going to look at how many milliseconds you're looking at the beginning of the string, and it locks it in. So I thought that was a really interesting development in tuning pianos. Another thing I wanted to ask about, years ago, I remember seeing this demonstration of a self-tuning piano. And I don't know
Mm,
if you saw this. And
I've heard of it.
the way it worked was really, really clever. All the strings are hooked up on each end uh, electrically, so the strings could be heated
Yeah.
to a precise temperature. And then what would be done is you tune the piano, and then it learns the tuning, and it can
Hmm.
then remember the tuning. And then the next time you turn the thing on, and um, I guess you'd have to like hit all the keys at the same time. Maybe you'd have to have a player mechanism to do that. I don't remember exactly. But then it just used the heating to heat the strings the appropriate amount, and
Right.
everything just goes into tune. And I heard about that. You suppose like the Piano Technicians Guild bought it and killed it? That's just
I
a
don't think
good
the Piano
conspiracy
Technicians
theory.
Guild is sophisticated enough to pull off that kind of a patent trolling. But yeah, that's interesting.
But it seemed so interesting, and I wonder if what happened to that.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it too. I would like to actually check it out. Have you
Hmm.
have you explored any of these sort of alternative type of pianos? I was at there's a shop in Chicago where I am at called Piano Forte. We've had
Hmm.
um, we've had Thomas on the show a couple times, who runs that. But I went to his showroom incidentally yesterday. He has a
Uh-huh.
Keybird. Have you seen this
No,
instrument?
what's that?
So it is it's not a full keyboard. It's
Hmm.
less, but it's made of ultralight materials
Oh, carbon
and
fiber?
and it's also like they've designed it in such that you can pick it up. It's it's
I
not
think I saw that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. How
It's
does it
it's
sound?
I tried it yesterday, and what's kind of nice about it is it's one of those instruments that only has a single string per note. And so then
Huh,
it's less likely to be, out of tune. You're less likely to notice any out of tuneness because then you don't have the
right.
common unisons. So it hadn't been tuned, but it hadn't been tuned recently, but it's still sounding pretty good. It doesn't sound exactly like a piano. It's got kind of like a
Right.
warmer tone quality, a little bit softer, more mellow, but I thought it was cool. It was a
Well,
cool
here's
device.
something really interesting. You know, there are string instruments, cellos and violins that are made out of carbon fiber.
Mhm.
And um, I know that I've read about some people using carbon fiber for soundboards that wouldn't be susceptible to temperature and humidity the way
Mhm.
wood is.
Yes.
And if the sound could be good, what a godsend that could be to keeping stability of tuning on a piano.
Yeah. We've had Del Fondrick on the program. He's less
Hmm.
active these days, but we've had him a few times, and he actually did a master class talking about how he was experimenting with different materials for soundboard, be it carbon
Hmm.
fiber or all sorts of other things. And it's a very interesting topic. Some of the
Yeah,
issues
plus,
are the resonances. So like, yes, you could use a
right.
carbon fiber or other different materials, but some, the actual tones that get brought out sometimes are not exactly what you want. Um, but
Yeah, but the
ultimately,
benefit though
yeah,
is that it could be replicated precisely. It could
yeah,
be machined exactly the same. So if you
yeah,
actually could achieve a great sound with a carbon fiber soundboard, you could mass produce, that 1 in 100, how you play one Steinway to the next or any piano, but they're all different, because no two trees are the same. But
mhm,
if it was machined, with robotics and you had carbon fiber, a piano that would stay in tune. Oh my gosh! I mean, um, this poor baby over here, because I have a shortage of piano technicians. In advance of the show, I touched up, the worst offending unisons, but this hardly ever gets tuned. And I've always kept my tuning hammer by my piano, and right after it's tuned, every time a unison goes out, try to, baby and keep it a little bit longer, but it's a thankless task. You play, it's like play a Liszt Hungarian Rhapsody, and you're going to have some unisons out as soon as you're done. A guitar player, obviously, I'm preaching to the choir here.
mhm, yeah.
So anything that would get a piano to stay in tune would really be unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's a double-edged sword for the piano technicians out there. But the other side of it is for the piano technicians is what we've been noticing too, which I think you're echoing in spirit here, is that the future of the industry for folks in this role of being a technician is just the higher and higher end, which oftentimes
Exactly.
isn't just tuning the piano, it's voicing the
There you
piano,
go.
it's
And I
being
think that if they had a piano that wouldn't go out of tune, it wouldn't be that people wouldn't have their piano service. They would just get them on a higher level. There's,
exactly.
the tuning is the beginning. And then you start doing the fine voicing and, of course, regulation. I sometimes describe working on a piano as one definition of infinity, going halfway again and again and again and never reaching it, but getting to
Yeah.
a point where you're so close that you can then pass the piano on to the new owner, who you can guide them how they can keep it on that high level. And you know what? It's not just piano tuning. That's the same thing with working on a piece of music. I have pieces I played, like this piece that I learned originally when I was 13 years old, still discovering new things, and it's never done, and a piano's never done. You just get it, really infinitesimally close. And even that's a fleeting moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing that, there's different ways to think about it. But in essence, that is kind of the beauty of the instrument. You have
Right.
these, I forget the specific domain. I mean, there's a couple different examples that are sort of apocryphal of like, okay, well, you have the rugs. They would make these beautiful Oriental rugs, and they would always actually make one stitch imperfect on purpose, you know. Or you had the china that would break, and then they would fill the cracks with gold and make it part of the beauty of the actual piece, you know, once it had been broken. And so I think that often gets overlooked because a lot of us who,
Mhm.
you know, care about making beautiful things also care about having them be at a high level. I want to be perfectly in tune. I want to have all
Right.
the fingering figured out perfectly with no mistakes or anything like that.
I wanted to interject something
Yeah.
interesting that is also related to piano tuning, which is I've heard piano technicians, and to me this seems preposterous, but who say that when you're tuning a piano, if you get a unison perfectly in tune, you know, it actually won't reinforce because you want those waveforms, if they're perfectly in tune, you're not going to get quite the sustain that you want to
Mhm.
have the duration of the unison be that one long wave of out of tuneness. And
Uh-huh.
the reason why I think that's so silly is that the first time you hit it hard, you're likely to reach that
Got
point
it
anyway.
anyways. Why
So
try to
are
make
you
it
really
right?
going to strive for that in your tuning? I mean, I thought it was crazy, but maybe I'm naive about this. I don't know.
I'm a little bit, I always just, listen, I always just strive to make it sound good. Whatever that sounds good to
Right.
me, that's my thing. But I'm definitely
Sure.
not gonna be like, oh, this is in tune, let me get it out of tune a little bit. No, that's not my
Just
style.
so that that one wave
Yeah.
is the length of the sustain of the tone. It's like, how the heck could you possibly measure that? And like I say, you know, they're always going out little by little anyway. You're going to get that
No.
chorus effect sooner than you want anyway.
These things are very interesting and surprising, though. Any one of us, I'm sure, including yourself, if you've ever made music using software, right?
Mhm.
Especially the kind of
Sure.
I forget what you call it, like the piano roll interface where you're
Right.
putting notes on a little grid. You find out very quickly that if all of the notes are perfectly in time mathematically, it sounds bad. And then
Absolutely.
and then these softwares, if you know, for those of you that haven't used like a digital music making software, they actually have a little function, a little button you could press, and it's called humanize.
That's
It takes
right.
all the perfection around the rhythms and just offsets us a little bit,
Well,
so
you
that
have
it doesn't sound that way.
quantization, but you
Yeah.
have quantization templates of different styles. Interestingly, I saw a video recently where somebody was taking was I forget what the singer who the singer was. Somebody who's contemporary and in first class, but he was showing on a scope how everything had been pitch corrected,
Mm,
and you could tell because nobody's going to be
right.
exactly, but it wasn't, it was done tastefully, so you couldn't tell.
Right.
But he said you can tell. Now listen to Somewhere Over the Rainbow, you know, from Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
and you hear Judy Garland, and he shows how, you know, this fantastic, you know, seminal performance, and you see the little nuances of pitch that aren't quite spot on, and
Yeah.
that's what gives them magic.
Yeah.
It's those slight imperfections. And so it is with you know, you could have a perfect piano performance of anything, you could program it in, but it's not going to do it for you. It's being human, just like robot voices. They're starting to get more human now, but you
Mhm.
know, it's really hard to get those imperfections, isn't
Yes.
it?
So we could go on forever. I'm like, there's all these things I want to bring up now, but we should probably wrap up soon. So I have a
Sure.
little plan here. We're going over the hour a little bit, but we started late. So a couple of things. Um, one is to say that the AI is learning to be more human now. So if you've used
Mhm.
ChatGPT, they have an audio version, and if
I've
you
been
get a
using
chance,
that.
yeah, if you get a chance
Yeah.
to try it out, you can talk to it. You can say, "Oh, hey,
Yes.
I'm trying to do this and that. Could you help me
It's
make a
also
plan?"
multimodal, so you can show it things.
Oh,
It can
really?
hear, it can
I didn't know
see.
that.
Oh yeah, I mean they have things like oh, what can I make? And you show it the inside of your refrigerator, and it'll tell you what you can put together. You know, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
So,
Now, a lot of people are really disturbed by this,
yes.
but think of what this can do, for example, for medicine in Africa, places where you don't have
Yeah.
doctors, and it can help to diagnose where it's that or nothing. So I see there's tremendous benefits, even though the creative fields are being,
Upended.
bombarded. Whoever thought that would happen?
The point I wanted to make is if you use the audio version, it'll talk back to you. And when it first talks back, it says, I'm going to tell you an answer to your question. And it has this thing where it'll say and I remember immediately I was like, this actually sounds like somebody talking to me. And I asked the ChatGPT, I was like, are you actually saying and like making little mistakes and pauses to be more human? And it was like,
More than that,
yes,
it
that is what
actually
I'm
can.
doing.
It can also read emotions in your voice on the prompt. So it's not just converting what you say
Okay.
into text, it's
Wow.
actually ascertaining
Wow.
the meaning from how you say it.
Wow. All right. You and I can go off the rails
Yeah,
here.
we'll have to
Um,
take this off the line, right?
so I think and the other thing I want to do is we did have a couple of questions that came in.
All
So
right.
I'm going to take one last question to make sure we honor the fact that people are engaging and interacting. We really appreciate that. So Adrian has asked, what are your thoughts about strategies for raising an interest in the evolution of pianos or performance on historical pianos?
Interestingly, I've got a documentary video that's short that you can check out at livingpianos.com. Just in the search box, put documentary, where that's exactly what I did with Living Piano Journey Through Time. But my nephew, Sean Cleve, in Wisconsin, in Madison, he is performing on historical instruments. As a matter of fact, I sold him my Forte piano. He's in the process of restringing that, and he's got a harpsichord. He just played a harpsichord recital here in Cleveland. So seeking out the performances on these instruments, there are very, very few people who do this because the instruments were different, but the performance practices were also different. Did you know that in the Baroque era, it was almost like a lead sheet? It was called figured bass. And the
Right.
notes weren't all written out. And
Right.
all keyboardists would improvise and they'd realize the part. And he's doing that. Sean is actually doing that. And so I think it's trying to connect, if you're in a larger metropolitan area, look for Baroque ensembles that do authentic performances, and you may just find some period instruments. And of course, there's a plethora of different technologies. Just during Beethoven's lifetime, there were at least 3 distinctly different pianos that he wrote for, which is evidenced by the expanding range of the keyboard called upon in his piano works.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, appreciate that. And thanks for keeping it succinct on that. And glad we can just say, oh, hey, go watch this video. That's great. I'll check it out. We'll check it
All
out.
right.
So yeah, we should wrap here. I know there was
Sure.
other stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I will say this. So it's not clear from the audience perspective, but we kind of pulled you in here pretty rapidly. It just so happened we had an opening and we got in here really quick, and you were really good at coming and turning things around. But I completely forgot that we've been experimenting with having a dual live stream. So we didn't do this, but we could have had streaming to your YouTube channel and our YouTube channel at the
Oh,
same time.
wow.
So in the future, we'll have you back. I think this will be great to talk more. We'll have you back. We'll do
Sure.
that. We'll do some other cool stuff. So we'll continue the conversation.
Great.
I'm getting a message from Ross Piano Service. Great to hear your passion for the piano. It's always great to have this great feedback from folks in the audience. So tell people, they probably can figure it out on their own, but be explicit. Where would you like them to go to find out more about you? What would you like them
Living
to
Pianos, livingpianos.com. Just you type in Living Pianos, you should find there are thousands of articles and videos searchable with keywords about almost everything you could imagine about pianos and piano playing. And if I don't have a video, let me know, because I make I don't know how many videos a month, 10 or 12 videos every month. And I've been doing that for years and years and years. And I have no plans on slowing down. So if you can't find something, bring it to me, because I'm always looking for good topics.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, I'll outro us here. We have reached the end of another musical journey at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thanks to Robert Estrin for joining us today. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. If you joined us just today, signing up for this session individually, make your life more convenient. You could subscribe to PTRH at just $16 a month. Get the recording of today's session in our member area, automatic registration for each week's new session. You could sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. And then just a reminder, we've got an online convention, a one-day extravaganza with 3 great instructors and another surprise coming on June 20th. The prices are less expensive the earlier you sign up, so make sure you go check that out. We'll put the link in the chat for that. Make sure you check out the podcast, pianotechradio.com. This episode should be out on that in about a month. I'm looking at the numbers behind the scenes. The podcast is blowing up. So thank you guys for your support and being a part of that. And make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you check out our socials, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're doing lots of stuff there as well. And the masterclass here, the annual convention, there's a short link for that. It's bit.ly/PTMC24, bit.ly/PTMC capital 24. All right, and also Robert's YouTube is at Living Pianos Videos if you want to check out the actual short link for that. All right, guys, thank you so much.
All right.
Robert, maybe do you want to jump back on the Zoom just to wrap up after we sign off, and then
Sure.
do you have a minute? Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll do that. But we'll say goodbye to everyone else, and we'll see you back here in a minute, Robert.
All right.
Thanks,
See you
thanks for
later.
your patience.
Take
up
care,
front.
everybody. Thanks for joining us.
All right, we'll talk to you later.